Welcome back to a new episode of Lives on Wheels. Before diving into today's protagonist, we invite you to subscribe to our channel if you want to see more videos like this. For you, it's a small gesture, but for us, it's vital to continue sharing the stories of figures who have left their mark on collective memory. Today, we're telling the life and exploits of someone many consider the greatest motorcycle racer of all time, Giacomo Agostini. Telling the story of Giacomo Agostini means traveling through an era when motorcycling was a domain for heroes, a theatre of flesh and metal where passion met danger with the fiery spark of pure talent. Ago, as he's affectionately called by all with reverence, was not just a champion, he was the embodiment of a generation, the shining symbol of an Italy that through twists and straights dreamed big. His numbers, 15 world titles as a rider, 6 as a team manager, 10 tourist trophy victories, 162 podium finishes, are already legendary. But as with any legend, the greatness goes beyond the numbers. One must delve into the soul to truly grasp its magnitude. It's not enough to celebrate the career, the spirit, the very essence of the champion must be evoked. As we'd say today, Giacomo Agostini was the GOAT of motorcycling, the greatest of all time, but with an Italian pride that inspires admiration. His story begins on June 16, 1942, when fate, ever whimsical, had him born in Brescia, but rooted him in the embrace of Val Camonica and the shores of Lake Iseo in Lovere, which Giacomo, despite being Brescian by birth, would always declare his true homeland. The eldest son of Aurelio, a municipal secretary and enterprising manager of a small fleet of lake boats, and Maria Vittoria, a loving and prudent mother, young Giacomo grew up in a serene and respectable environment as the first of 4 brothers, Gabriele, Mauro, and Felice. It was in this setting that an enigmatic and irresistible call to engines awakened in him, like distant thunder drawing closer. His early adventures on 2 wheels were almost clandestine. On the family's Bianchi Aquilotto moped, young Giacomo darted like a sprite through village obstacle courses and dirt roads winding through the hills, earning an early reputation as a child prodigy. But the real revelation came at the age of 9 when, with the audacity of one destined for greatness, he decided to borrow his father's Galetto for an unauthorized ride. The adventure ended with a dramatic fall in the village square. Too short to reach the ground, young Giacomo paid with bruises and a stern scolding. Yet the seed had been planted. His passion grew with him, but his father Aurelio, a man of firm principles, saw motorcycles as dangerous and strictly forbade their competitive use. However, young Giacomo was not one to give up easily. He patiently waited until he turned 18 and, with cunning and persistence, convinced his father to accompany him to the family notary to grant him permission. In an episode straight out of a comedy, the elderly, slightly deaf notary misheard the word motorcycle as bicycle and solemnly declared, "Go ahead, Aurelio, sports are good for young people, they keep them away from worse temptations." From that moment, his life changed course. The roar of the engine became the rhythm of his heart and the curves of the road his destiny. Agostini thus embarked on an extraordinary journey that would rewrite the history of motorcycling and transform him from a champion into a living legend. At just 19, Giacomo Agostini secured his father's approval to pursue racing but received no financial support. Undeterred, he teamed up with 2 friends who acted as his mechanics and purchased a Motobai 175 directly from the factory, attracted by competition modifications that promised to make it a winning machine. However, delays in delivery threatened to ruin the season. The young racer turned to the Rovaris dealership in Bergamo, where he bought a Moto Morini Settebello road bike for 500,000 lire, paid in 30 installments. Those installments were covered by race winnings and bets won along the shores of Lake Iseo. His first official race took place on July 18, 1961, the famous Trento Bondone hill climb. Riding the Settebello, Giacomo raced under the colors of the Moto Club Costa Volpino, challenging the legendary Attilio Damiani, known as the Mountain Squirrel. With 2 friends acting as mechanics and a brand new bike, Agostini claimed an impressive second place, hinting at the greatness to come. That winter was dedicated to improvements. The Settebello was equipped with an Oldani twin-cam brake, and the engine was fine-tuned by the factory. The breakthrough came on May 1, 1962, during a Temporada Romagnola race in Cesenatico. After setting the fastest time in qualifying, a malicious act of sabotage cut the throttle cable on his bike. Frustrated but determined, Giacomo sought help from the Moto Morini pit. There he met Dante Lambertini, the team manager, who allowed him to test a factory backup bike. During practice, Agostini broke the track record, impressing Lambertini, who entrusted him with the bike for the race. Despite a fall that bent the gear lever, Giacomo finished third. It was a tough but decisive lesson. From that day on, he adopted a rigorous discipline, giving up excesses and focusing on preparation. The turning point came on May 27, 1962, at the Bologna-San Luca hill climb, where he won with a record time. Among the spectators was Alfonso Morini, who saw the future of motorcycling in the young rider. That evening, in the modest inn where Agostini was staying, Morini offered him an official contract. After persuading his father to sign, Giacomo turned professional, riding a Settebello Aste Corte, prepared by the Moto Morini racing team. In 1963, Agostini's career took off. Determined to dominate every terrain, he competed in both the Italian Mountain Championship and the Junior Speed Championship, winning them both. He won nearly every race, except for two, where he had to settle for second place. His superiority, coupled with Tarquinio Provini's imminent departure from Moto Morini, cemented him as the team's lead rider. Thus, Argo debuted in the Senior Championship and began racing in the World Championship. On September 13, 1963, at the nation's Grand Prix in Monza, Agostini raced the legendary 250 Bialbero alongside Provini. He led the race but was forced to slow down due to an exhaust pipe issue. Despite this, the young talent continued to attract attention. In 1964, with Provini moving to Bagnelli, Agostini became Moto Morini's top rider. He won the Senior Italian Championship and competed in several world races, achieving two fourth-place finishes at Solitude and Monza, behind the untouchable Honda and Yamaha teams. The pinnacle came on April 19, 1964, at the Shell Gold Cup in Imola. Riding the 250 Bialbero, Agostini defeated his former teammate Provini, who was racing on the quad-cylinder Benelli. The victory was a masterpiece, with lap times even better than those of Jim Redman on a Honda. However, despite their love for their champion, Moto Morini couldn't compete with the resources of international teams. It was Carlo Ubbiali, a trusted friend, who recommended Agostini to Count Domenico Agusta. In 1965, Giacomo joined MV Agusta, teaming up with the legendary Mike Hailwood in the 500cc class. This marked the beginning of a new era, one in which the young rider from Bergamo would dominate the global stage, turning his talent into myth and his life into legend. In the spring of 1965, a young rider from Bergamo named Giacomo Agostini made his triumphant entrance into the world of elite motorcycling. It was the Nürburgring, a circuit where only the bold dared to seek glory. Riding an extraordinary MV Agusta 350 triple, Ogo crossed the finish line as the winner. His talent echoed through paddocks across Europe. In the premier 500cc class, he had to settle for second place, beaten by teammate Mike Hailwood, but the legend was already blooming. Agostini came tantalizingly close to winning the world title that same year, but was betrayed by a trivial fault. A wire disconnected from the condenser during the final race at Suzuka. This seemingly insignificant episode forever shaped his philosophy. Every technical detail, no matter how minute, deserved the meticulous attention of a goldsmith. From that moment on, Argo became an obsessive, almost compulsive pilot in caring for his motorcycle, which he regarded as an inseparable partner in battle. It was also the moment a historic chapter began. Mike Hailwood left MV to join Honda, igniting a rivalry that would set the world circuits ablaze for years. 1966 marked the beginning of an epic duel. Agostini triumphed in the 500 class, relegating the Englishman to second place, but Hailwood prevailed in the 350 class. On September 11th at Monza, an unforgettable race unfolded. Starting poorly in the 500, Agostini clawed his way back lap by lap with fierce determination, overtaking Hailwood and clinching the world title with a masterpiece of skill and grit. It was an iconic moment in his career where determination and talent merged in perfect harmony. During the quiet pause between motorcycle seasons in that distant 1966, Giacomo Agostini had his first taste of the glamorous world of car racing. It was none other than Enzo Ferrari himself, the legendary Drake, who summoned him to Modena. Alongside Argo, two other young prospects were invited, Andrea de Adamic and Ignazio Giunti. The setting was worthy of a classic drama, and the object of their challenge no less epic, a Ferrari Dino 206S Berlinetta, a beast of engineering and the dream of every driver. Agostini, with the surgical precision and feline grace that already marked him as a virtuoso of two wheels, tamed that machine with a mastery that left everyone speechless. The pitiless and unequivocal stopwatch confirmed his supremacy. The Drake, a man of vision and fiery passion, observed him with the keen eye of someone who recognizes genius. And so, in a moment laden with history, Ferrari made him an offer to join his team on the condition that he abandon motorcycles forever. It was an ultimatum, leaving no room for negotiation. Giacomo, a man of another era and unwavering loyalty, did not take the decision lightly. One can imagine him walking alone on quiet evenings, torn between two worlds, while newspapers speculated about an epical shift in his career. Yet within him, the voice of two wheels sang louder. It was an irresistible melody, an ancient call that even the allure of four wheels couldn't silence. In the end, perhaps burdened by the weight of a missed opportunity, but certain of his choice, Agostini remained loyal to MV Agusta and motorcycles, declining Ferrari's invitation. Thus, history took another path, but as often happens, a thread of what-ifs and maybes continued to intertwine the destiny of a champion with the myth of car racing, and his decision proved correct as the following years solidified his greatness. The following years cemented his legacy. 1967 was the stage for another memorable season of clashes with Hailwood, culminating in a curious tie in the 500 class. The two champions amassed the same points, but the title went to Agostini due to a greater number of second-place finishes. For years, rumors persisted of an alleged younger rider rule that favored the Italian, but this was an unfounded myth. Hailwood's departure and Honda's withdrawal at the end of the season left the field open for Argo and his MV Agusta, ushering in an era of absolute dominance. Between 1968 and 1972, the Agostini MV duo claimed 10 world titles, crushing the competition and writing some of the most glorious chapters in motorcycling history. During those years, Ago won 82 of the 102 races he entered across the 350 and 500 classes, an unprecedented achievement. Yet shadows were not absent. The tragic accident in 1971 that claimed the life of teammate Angelo Bergamonti during a race on the Riccione Street circuit deeply marked Agostini. It was a harsh blow for a man already acquainted with the price of danger. Despite the pain, the Bergamasco champion continued to win, securing both world titles that year with extraordinary consistency and determination. The following year, the death of Gilberto Parlotti at the Isle of Man Tourist Trophy prompted Argo to take an unprecedented stand. He openly challenged the International Federation, denouncing the unbearable risks of the circuit. "I will never race here again," he declared, breaking a long-standing taboo. His words were not empty. The Tourist Trophy was excluded from the World Championship calendar in 1977, thanks in part to his resolve. With Hailwood's exit and MV's inevitable dominance, Agostini often found himself managing races where the real challenge seemed to be time rather than rivals. The fierce duels with Renzo Pasolini, especially in Italian competitions, were exceptions, but on the global stage, the Agostini-Mervi partnership was so overwhelming that few challengers could match them. Critics were not absent. Some spoke of easy victories and a lack of true contenders. But how could Agostini be blamed if others, machines or riders, simply weren't there? It wasn't just victories on the track that filled Giacomo Agostini's heart. There was something deeper and more poignant accompanying him to foreign lands, the embrace of Italian emigrants. These were men and women who spent most of the year living as invisibles in the coal mines of Belgium or doing the humblest jobs in Germany, forced to bow their heads to a world that regarded them as unwelcome guests. For 360 days a year, they were treated as outsiders, reduced to marginal figures, looked upon with suspicion or condescension. But when Agostini crossed the finish line first, everything changed. On circuits like the Nürburgring or Spa, a victory by a fellow countryman transformed daily humiliation into overwhelming pride. It was an explosion of emotion, a symbolic redemption that made them feel like children of a glorious land once again. They flooded the track, shouting and waving the Italian flag because that victory belonged not just to him, but to them, too, to the last, to the forgotten. It was as if, for a day, the weight of coal on their shoulders was lighter, as if the hardships of their lives found meaning in that success, in that champion who represented them before the world. Agostini knew this, and those moments stayed with him. Their tears, their outstretched hands seeking to touch the victor, were not just celebration. They were gratitude. He didn't race just for personal glory, but also to give back a fragment of joy and dignity to those who, in sacrifice and anonymity, continued to dream through his achievements. On those days, for those men and women, no mind could hold them captive, because on the track, with a go, they were all winners. To prove his true worth on the track, there were the battles against formidable opponents. Whenever a tough rival emerged, whether due to personal skill or the quality of their machine, Agostini always responded with determination and talent. This was evident in his confrontations with Jim Redman, Mike Hailwood and Renzo Pasolini, as well as with newer competitors like Jarno Saarinen and resilient teammates such as Angelo Bergamonti and Phil Red. There were races where poetry met technical prowess, and his ability to adapt to circumstances, to bend the machine to his will, cemented his greatness. When he finally found a rival of equal caliber, such as Redman, Pasolini or Reed, Agostini never shied away from the challenge. In 1972, for instance, he won the South African Tourist Trophy under extreme conditions, enduring scorching heat that reduced the field to just 5 riders at the finish. The result underscored his tenacity and his ability to dominate even in the most adverse situations. In the world of 1960s and 1970s motorcycle racing, a realm of raw passion, engine oil, and mechanics sweating over their bikes, Giacomo Agostini represented a silent but powerful revolution. It was an era when riders were niche heroes, adored by enthusiasts but confined to the microcosm of the paddocks. Yet Agostini, with his natural charisma and strategic intelligence, transformed himself into something greater, transcending the racetrack to become an icon capable of captivating even those unfamiliar with the roar of motorcycles. From the 1960s onward, Agostini's magnetism did not escape the tabloids. The press quickly seized on his persona, an elegant and charming champion, a man seemingly born for the jet set. He was linked to flings with actresses, models, and prominent stars of the time, including the beautiful German actress Karin Schubert. But Agostini didn't merely allow himself to be the subject of stories. He skillfully used his fame, turning it into leverage to build a career that went beyond sport. He starred in photo novels and became a spokesperson for major brands, filling his racing suit with sponsors who recognized his commercial potential far beyond the track. His face appeared in highly followed advertising campaigns, consolidating the myth of a champion who could shine in any context, whether on the track or under the spotlight. Yet through it all, Agostini never lost sight of his primary goal, being the fastest of all. An example of his discipline came in 1971 when Pietro Germi, one of Italy's most acclaimed directors at the time, offered him a leading role in a film. It was an enticing proposal, one that would have tempted anyone. But Agostini, fully aware of the prestige it could bring, turned it down. "The long filming period would interfere with my sports career," he explained without hesitation. For him, competition remained the top priority. Between 1971 and 1973, Agostini lent his face to the famous Carosello. He collaborated with Anonima Petroli Italiani, API, showcasing a talent that extended beyond speed. He interviewed sports champions like Eddie Ottos, Omar Sivori, and Nicola Pietrangeli, demonstrating charm, wit, and an innate sense of class. Once again, Agostini proved his versatility. He was not just a rider, but a symbol, an ambassador of the sport capable of making a rugged world glamorous. Yet behind that dazzling image was a man who understood sacrifice. If Agostini avoided fully immersing himself in the paddock environment outside of races, it wasn't out of arrogance or detachment, but a conscious choice. For him, the paddock was a battlefield, and battles required a clear mind and a rested body. Disconnecting from the noise of the circuits was his strategy for regaining focus. a discipline that allowed him to tackle every turn with surgical precision and mental clarity. In an era when motorcycling thrived on raw passion, Agostini transformed his image into a bridge between the romantic world of racing and the modernity of great stars. He was a pioneer not only on the track but also in mastering the art of being a complete professional, capable of making his name resonate far beyond the roar of engines. After the death of Count Domenico Agusta in 1971, MV Agusta faced a turning point, with new management taking the reins. In that context, for the 1973 championship, the team decided to pair Giacomo Agostini with another great name in international motorcycling, Phil Reed, the multi-time English champion. Agostini, who had dominated unchallenged on those bikes, was given a prototype under development derived from the 350, while Reed received the more powerful and well-tested 500. The press began speculating, feeding rumours that Agostini was about to switch to Benelli, tales of a lavish contract rumoured to be worth 70 million lire, and the exchange of his Ferrari Dino for a De Tomaso Pantera GTS seemed to confirm the transfer, but, as often happens with those truly great, the rumours were quickly dismissed. Agostini, with his calm but determined demeanour, responded to the speculation with silence, knowing that the only thing that mattered was his bike and his race. However, 1973 turned out to be a season of great suffering for Agostini. Not only did the tragic deaths of Renzo Pasolini and Gianno Saarinen at Monza cast a dark shadow over the paddock, but his championship was also a constant struggle. The prototype he was entrusted with proved to be a failure, fragile and unstable. Of the 11 Grand Prix races in the 500cc class, he completed only 4, managing 3 victories and 1 second place. These results left him third in the final standings, a placement that felt more like consolation than a true victory. Meanwhile, Reed, his teammate, dominated the scene, while Kim Newcomb on a Koenig emerged as a surprise contender. Agostini, though showing courage and class, seemed to face a new reality, that of defeat in a grueling season. During this period, however, Agostini began to reckon with an epochal change in motorcycling. 4-stroke motorcycles were showing their limitations, and the future seemed to belong to 2-stroke engines. For the first time, Agostini looked beyond MV Agusta and seriously considered offers from Japan. Yamaha, Suzuki, Kawasaki all courted him. But it was Yamaha that made the decisive move, offering him sums he would never have considered before, but now seemed like a sign of destiny. On December 4th, 1973, in Milan, Agostini held the first press conference of his career. Beside him was Rod Gould, Yamaha's sports director. That press conference marked a pivotal moment in the history of motorcycling, as Agostini announced his departure from MV Agusta and his entry into Yamaha's world. However, the separation came at a cost. Ago set an irrevocable condition for his transfer, bringing along his longtime mechanic Arturo Magni and his trusted team. But no one followed him. Thus, Agostini signed a 2-year contract with Yamaha for a staggering sum, 200,000 yen, equivalent to about 300 million lira per season, far surpassing MV Agusta's offer. The agreement was sealed, and Agostini moved to Japan, where he would contribute to the development of the Yamaha YZR 500 W20, focusing particularly on the chassis, his true technical obsession. The switch to Yamaha sparked a storm of controversy. The press accused him of betrayal, of abandoning the made-in-Italy spirit to chase foreign money. The harshest criticism came from specialized media, who doubted his ability to adapt to a 2-stroke engine, considered less suited to his clean and precise style. Yet, as always in his career, Agostini was undeterred by critics. Where skeptics saw an end, Ago turned the change into a new beginning. His greatness was not tied to the bikes he rode or the brands he represented, but to his ability to master them. And so, despite the doubts, the future would be his, as always. His debut with Yamaha came on March 10, 1974, at the prestigious and challenging Daytona 200. Agostini immediately found himself in a hostile environment. The US media mocked him with nicknames like Ago Daisy or Ago Dago, while Kenny Roberts, the American champion and clear favorite, openly challenged him, declaring, "I'll eat him raw." Unfazed, Ago approached the week of testing like a general on reconnaissance. Seemingly nonchalant in shorts and flip-flops, he meticulously studied every curve of the track, observed his rivals' trajectories, and subjected himself to grueling training under the scorching sun to acclimate to the infernal heat. His methodical approach even exasperated the Japanese technicians, but race day was a masterpiece. With impeccable riding and a relentless pace, he forced his rivals to burn through fuel, tires, and mechanics beyond their limits. He crossed the finish line in triumph, leaving Roberts behind who, incredulous, admitted, "I can't believe Agostini is human." It was an epic victory, achieved at the age of 32, a time when many of his peers had already hung up their helmets. Yet the effort took its toll. Exhausted, Agostini collapsed onto a couch in the press room, attended by Dr. Claudio Costa. 2 weeks later, still riding the powerful Yamaha TZ 750, Agostini repeated his success at the 200 miles of Imola, confirming his extraordinary form. But 1974 was a troubled season. In the Premier 500cc class, Yamaha suffered reliability issues and had to concede the title to Phil Reed and MV Agusta. The most dramatic episode occurred at the nation's Grand Prix in Imola when Agostini, leading by a wide margin and cheered on by the crowd, ran out of fuel on the final lap. Even more dramatic was a crash at Anderstorp in Sweden, where he fractured his collarbone, compromising his championship pursuit. Despite these setbacks, Argo secured the 350cc World Championship title. In 1975, the champion from Bergamo engaged in a fierce battle in the 500cc class against Phil Reed and MV Agusta. It was an epic duel which Agostini won to claim his 15th and final world title. However, motorcycling was changing. The rise of two-stroke engines and the influx of young riders seeking glory marked the dawn of a new era. The 1976 season was peculiar. Yamaha decided to partially withdraw from racing, leaving Agostini free to compete under different banners. He accepted the challenge of returning to MV Agusta, which was nearing its withdrawal from the sport, complementing it with sporadic appearances on a Yamaha. His return to the Varese-based manufacturer was marked by two memorable victories, at Assen in the 350cc class and above all at the Nürburgring in the 500cc class, on the relentless track where he had won his first world championship in 1965. The Nürburgring triumph was a true masterpiece of sporting poetry, celebrated by fans as the final blaze of a timeless champion. In 1977, riding a Yamaha 500, Agostini contested his last season at the top level, but his ability to compete was diminishing. Barry Sheen's Suzuki had become the new benchmark, and Agostini finished the championship in 6th place, though he managed 2 second-place finishes. In Italy, the Bergamo champion claimed his 18th national title and won the last Grand Prix of his career. The final round of the Formula 750 World Championship at Hockenheim on September 25, 1977, riding the Yamaha TZ 750. The end of the 1977 season marked a historic moment. With his traditional Christmas message, Agostini announced his retirement from motorcycle racing to focus on car racing. He left an immense void like the passage of a comet, an unrepeatable phenomenon destined to etch his name forever into the legend of sport. Agostini's record is astounding. 15 world titles, 16 Italian championships, 122 Grand Prix victories, 10 tourist trophy wins, and nearly 300 career victories. Agostini was not just the champion of an era, he was the embodiment of a motorcycling spirit that dared to look beyond danger toward a better future. His victories, celebrated on tracks worldwide, were never just his. They were victories for an Italy that, united around its heroes, found the courage to dream. As fans flooded circuits like Assen or the Nürburgring, waving the tricolour flag, Ego became more than a champion. He became the symbol of a people seeking redemption. Today his name still echoes as a reminder of that distant time when courage and talent intertwined with history, and the roar of engines narrated the deeds of men who feared no limits. Yet the destiny of such an unparalleled champion never ends with the final checkered flag. Agostini, the man of 15 world crowns and countless triumphs, never ceased riding the wave of competition, even as the circuits and challenges changed shape. When the curtain fell on his motorcycle career, the transition to car racing seemed natural. It was 1978, and with the steadfast support of Marlboro, Ego dove into the Formula 2 championship, driving a BMW-powered Chevron B42. The following year, he moved to the Aurora Formula One series, piloting a Williams FDW06. His trajectories were still fluid, his strategic calculation impeccable, but against more experienced rivals familiar with the secrets of four-wheel racing, Ago had to accept that the peak of glory he had reached on two wheels was unattainable. Even though his results in car racing were modest, some podium finishes and a fifth-place final ranking in 1980, the man from Lovere never failed to earn respect and admiration. After concluding his adventure behind the wheel, Agostini hung up his helmet and gloves for good, but not his fighting spirit. Like a commander who never abandons the battlefield, Agostini found new life as a team manager. In 1982, he took the reins of the Marlboro Yamaha team, turning his tactical genius and obsessive attention to detail into a winning weapon. For 14 consecutive seasons, Ago led the team to extraordinary triumphs, including 6 world titles in the Premier class. Riders like Eddie Lawson benefited from his clear vision and instinct, securing riders' and constructors' titles with a regularity that seemed almost like a signature. In 1992, responding to the call of the Italian flag, he took on the challenge of managing the G.O.A.T team. Despite having more limited resources than the Japanese giants, Agostini left his mark. John Kocinski's third-place finish in the 1995 500cc World Championship was the pinnacle of a David versus Goliath-like endeavor. Today, Giacomo Agostini observes motorcycling with clarity, like a guide untouched by time. For many, he is still the greatest of all time. And my gift was going fast on a motorcycle, he says modestly, but we know he was much more. Ago was speed, elegant strategy. He was the man who turned every corner into poetry, an eternal champion who lived 1,000 lives without ever losing sight of what mattered most, the passion for speed and the love of competition. Despite the passing of years and the changing eras, Giacomo Agostini's figure remains unique and indisputable, an eternal champion who managed to live 1,000 lives without ever losing sight of the essential, the passion for speed and the love for competition. Despite the passage of years and eras shifting like waves crashing on the shore, the figure of Giacomo Agostini remains unique and indisputable. Today, riders are almost preordained, placed on bikes by parents who have already mapped out their path, as if destiny were written in the hands of those who, as children, guided them onto go-karts or mini-bikes. By the age of 14, these young racers already possess a level of experience that would have been unimaginable just a few decades ago, a foundation that is difficult to call growth and that often risks neglecting the genuine passion that was once the true engine of motorcycling. In Agostini's time, however, the beginning was an act of awareness, a deliberate choice. A young man who started racing did so after years of nurturing a passion for motorcycles, not with the frantic urgency of a career that had to take off immediately. Riders began later, at 18 years old, after a lengthy journey through the lower classes, where the struggle was not only against opponents but also against oneself. Back then, there were more categories, more opportunities to grow and test oneself, and no pressure to reach the top too quickly. And it is precisely for this reason that Agostini, with his humility and extraordinary talent, was and will remain, for many, the greatest of all time. Not only for his 15 world titles, but for his ability to elevate motorcycling to another level, turning every victory into a masterpiece of strategy and perfection. He was the greatest for his refined class, for his vision of racing that transcended mere competition. He was the greatest for the way he captured the hearts of Italians, becoming not only the champion of the tracks, but also the icon of a sport that, at the time, did not yet know it had a legend. He was the greatest for his perseverance, his ability to reinvent himself, to adapt and to continue winning even when the context changed. And above all, he was the greatest for one fundamental reason. More than anyone else, he was able to combine talent with dedication, passion with professionalism. He turned this mix into his greatest strength, not only on the track but also off it, where he succeeded in becoming a legend that transcends time. For anyone who witnessed his indomitable spirit and impeccable style, Agostini is not just the greatest of his era. He is, without a doubt, the greatest of all time. We leave it here, but the road of legends continues and the wheels keep turning. The stories remain. Every person tells a journey and reveals an era. Until the next stop, always on two wheels and with another piece of history to share.